Welcome again, Rose. I heard you just now, so I think you may
You
have
heard
said,
me.
yes, I did. And I'm hearing you loud and clear, and we are seeing that lovely smile as well. So your camera is working perfect. Welcome to the Marcia Week Show.
Good evening, Pastor Ferdy. Always a pleasure to be with you. The energy, the synergy, I look forward to, and I want to say, as I always do, good evening, loyal sons and daughters, all firm craftsmen of her faith. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. And I'm
Good
sure in the
evening.
comments they will all be saying good evening to you and welcome, Rose.
Thank you. And maybe my smile is brought to hide the seesaw of up down of emotions that I've been experiencing over the last couple of days regarding what's happening in Barbados, particularly when we saw that headline yesterday on in the news. You know, we can't help but feel a tinge of unhappiness, living in fear. Um,
Mm.
we can't help but feel that unhappiness. So I've got to smile so that I don't project what's inside of me, that turmoil. But I'm very this evening. And I want to say too, as I look at the caption for the protest march, we don't feel safe. Remember a couple of weeks when they poured um, those, when Dr. Wickham spoke on one of the DLP platforms for the by-election, and he spoke of not feeling safe. They made a big issue, the other side, concerning his observations and his comments. But here we see it on the newspaper yesterday that 79-year-old lady is saying that she's living in fear. And so many across the island, we are untouched. We are either, some are touched directly, some are touched indirectly, vicariously, empathetically by the fear that seems to be pervading the island. And I am not a pessimistic person. I try to be optimistic. I try to be upbeat. I try to live with the hope that I have as a Christian. But there are times when one can feel the fear descend on you. And one wonders, is this my Barbados? Is this my Barbados? I'll be celebrating a birthday come Friday. And I never, thank you, and I never expected that I would be addressing issues like this. I would always tell a girlfriend, we can't wait till we get our pension cards, our pension, and we're going to ride the bus and we're going to the post office and collect our pensions together. Now, persons don't even want to venture out of their homes, and they are glad for online banking so they don't have to walk around with cash or keep cash in their homes. But the perpetrators of crime out there, the young people who want quick cash, by all means possible, they don't understand the dynamics of the elderly, the dynamics of persons that might pass and see you looking well or to them well off in a nice home, and they see you as a target. That's not my Barbados. And I'm not saying, Pastor Ferdy, that we did not have crimes and deviancy in our communities and across the nation, but not like this. How many murders, homicides have we had for the year? You said what, 21?
Oops.
Uh,
21 in 22 weeks.
Almost 1 week. And we're not talking about assaults. We're not talking about robbery. We're not talking about rape that would have been reported. We're not talking about these things. So if these are added, what has become to my Barbados? And so I'm a little reflective tonight, more than I normally would be. And I'm asking ourselves and the viewers and those who write in the chat, I'm going to ask some questions and probably you could give me some answers. And last night, as I listened in, Mr. Murray in passing spoke to the tipping point. And I remember that I bought that book about 20 years ago. And
Mhm.
I was intrigued. And I always looked out for the tipping point in various situations. And so we want to share with ourselves tonight on the tipping point and have we toppled. I said it last night and I'm saying I don't think we're at a tipping point anymore. I believe that we have toppled somewhat. And let's look at what is said about the tipping point. Can you see it your end better than I do here?
I can see the tipping point, a moment of small influences, but after which there is dramatic and sudden change.
And that's the tipping point. And we have a diagram here. You see the climb up, the ascent to the point, and we're told that it is steady, it's uphill, it is slow going. But when it reached that point, the tipping points, it crashes down. The momentum increase and it goes right down with accelerated speed. Let us look at more on the tipping point. And this is a summary of the book and what the author Malcolm Gladwell would have um, put forward on the tipping point. The most well known book on tipping points is The Tipping Point: How Little Things Can Make a Big Difference by Malcolm Gladwell. This book explores how seemingly small changes can trigger rapid and widespread shifts in behavior, trends, and ideas. And I want us to map mentally, have we had a tipping point experience? Are we at the tipping point or we have gone past that? And again, I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I'm saying that we've gone past the tipping point. I can't, he's Corey. Corey, who started that one of the new parties,
Yes, attorney at law
and
Corey Beckles.
Corey Beckles.
Yes.
And Mr. Beckles, last week said that crime has gone out of control, and he talked about that national security committee that was set up, and he said that we're at the tipping point. And he didn't compare his notes with mine, neither did he compare with Glenn, but we are at a point now where we are seeing that we are at the tipping point and we have gone past. And I want to find out, when did it happen? Let's look at some the next page, some of the things that have been highlighted and what causes uh, the tipping points. Again, tipping points are the moments when a small change leads to a large, widespread shift.
Yes.
I am talking national level now, Pastor Ferdy.
Hmm.
I am coming out of the homes, and I'm talking about national level. I am seeing that there are some things at national level that could have led, may have led, and probably have led to the tipping point. And what are these small changes that have led to a large, widespread shift? And he talked about tipping points in everyday life, including the rise of hush puppy shoes. This was written, as I said, over almost 3 decades, when hush puppies were the end thing. You probably
Some of,
had, I
some
had
of
a
our
pair.
some of our young people probably don't even know what we're talking about when we talk about
Yes.
hush
And
puppies.
the tipping point that led
Uh,
to the drop in New York
New York rhyme
City's
rate.
crime rate, and you could
Yes.
research that. The NYPD engaged in some very drastic actions, which led to the drop in the crime rate in New York City, so that they did not reach tipping point. They saw it was getting there, and they made some proactive um, actions before they reach tipping point. Let's look now at some of the behaviors or attributes or things that could be accorded to that tipping point. The law of the few. And this, Pastor Ferdy, has been playing in my head all last night. The law of the few, where a small number of influential people can have a disproportionate impact on social change. Do I need to go any further? Right now in Barbados, there seem to be the law of the few. The law of the few with the guns. The prime minister said, guns don't walk, guns don't talk. But how do these primarily young black men in Barbados get the guns to commit such violent acts against each other in terms of um, revenge hits, in terms of robberies, in terms of drive-by shootings, and others that we may not be aware of? Who are these small number of influential people? Are they known? Are they known to the law? What are their actions, their activities? Who are they that are causing this disproportionate impact on our society? There is the law right in our faces. We have that concept, the law of the few. Why is it that they cannot be found in a 2 by 3 island called Barbados? Why do they, this small number, and what influence do they have? What influence do they have? Please reflect with me. Where are they? Can they be located? How can we get rid of them? Smoke them out. They seem to have an um some kind of visibility, and I keep remembering people have spoken to the opening of Parliament where persons of a small number of influential persons in another sector of society were seen at the opening of Parliament. And this is the law of the few. Pastor Ferdy, I'm convinced that a few influential persons whose behaviors may not be positive are causing this impact on our society, causing this fear that is gripping us, causing this anxiety, the trouble that we are experiencing at national level, that we are experiencing in our schools, on our streets. Then we have the stickiness factor, and I would go past that one. But look at the power of context, how the environment and circumstances can influence behavior and outcomes. The power of context, how the environment and circumstances can influence behavior and outcome. And we are seeing how the environment here in Barbados has changed, and changed so rapidly because of the influence of the law of the few. Are you following me, Pastor
Oh,
Ford?
yes, I am.
Or
Oh, yes, I am. Very much so.
I'm not explaining myself. I'm
No, no,
so
no.
caught
You're
up
doing
with it
you're doing an excellent
emotionally.
you're doing an excellent job. You excellent job. I thought of the Pareto principle, the 80-20 principle when you were talking about the law of the few. 20% of people doing 80% of the work, but in this instance, 20% of the people doing 80% of the crime. The law of the few. And the power of context, environment. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And could we scroll and let me see if there's another one I want to pick apart? Is that the end?
No, I think we have one more, the epidemic of ideas and trends.
Yes. And right now, the he uses a lot of metaphors to explain how ideas, products, and behavior spread rapidly. I don't want to go into, the type of metaphors, but there is an epidemic in Barbados, and we are seeing it spreading rapidly. And it's not what's happening at the geriatric hospital. And still we are having it being refuted. No, it isn't. So that's another for those who want to deal with the health matter. But It is spreading. It seems as though a disease called indifference, a disease called callousness, and a disease called is wanton, it is emboldened, it is brazen. And I am asking who or what has emboldened or embrazen. And I'm starting here as a trainer of participatory research. I am starting with our current realities. Our current realities reside within the context of the present, the most recent. And I am hearing the Prime Minister talk about the George Bridge that was signed in Georgetown by the CARICOM heads of government to look at crime and violence. I would have shared on that before. I hope I have another opportunity to revisit the things that the Prime Minister would have aligned herself to spoken to as the chair of CARICOM. She leaves, demits that position the 30th of June. But there are still some pressing questions that we must ask. What has happened under her chairmanship as the leader, the chair of CARICOM, in terms of the narratives and the declarations that were made on crime and violence in the region? If you can manage it at micro level, tell us what's happening then at the CARICOM level, and if it is going to trickle down to see a reduction of crime and violence. One, I think the declaration that was made in Grenada, it was, or Trinidad, spoke to music that denigrates women and children and violence and promotes violence. Did we not had Vibes Cartel here recently?
Yes, we did.
And they made a declaration against such at one of the CARICOM heads of government meeting. I want us to find out. I believe that David Thompson, the late David Thompson, with his emphasis on families first, realized that the tipping point would come and it would just get out of control if we did not look at the family and support families. You remember when that was his platform, campaign, slogan,
Yes.
that you remember how the other side laughed at him. And I think their slogan was going with Owen. And now it has come back to haunt us. And the Prime Minister now is saying families must come together, families must take their children to church. While in the wider society, we are not seeing it being reflected at that level, the political level.
All
We are
talk,
toppling
all talk.
the top, we're becoming popped down. Then I remember, I think it was around 2011, when the then Minister of Education, Ronald Jones, he talked about the children having demons and they must be cleansed of these demons if they are way to get rid of the deviant behaviors in schools. I mean, when I heard that, I said, "Come on, uh, Minister Jones, you know." you know, I understood what he was saying, but come on, what, you can't put it differently. But he realized that we were at the tipping point. But what did they do? They laughed at him. The other side laughed at him. And they 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 they, they labeled that period as the lost decade. And when the prime minister launched her manifesto in 2018,
18.
I am asking, I studied it again. Did she see the tipping point and offered what mission critical, and said that within 6 months of assuming government that she was going to address crime and the violence in school. Remember, I keep coming back to that. Putting guidance, more counselors in school, putting persons on the buses or where students congregate to control deviant behaviors among students. And what have we had since then? We have had a widespread Princess Margaret School last week. The teachers reached the tipping point at Princess Margaret School. Things have toppled now. They have reached the point and gone downhill. And there's no coming. I'm not saying there's no coming back, but who will bring it back? And I know that the chief education officer, her background and interest is in technology, robotics, and that is what is being pushed. And I have another clip on education where this teacher in New York resigned or retired after 20 plus years and says she's done with it. The children in the school are bad behaved, they can't read, and technology is driving the bad behavior and the lack of literacy amongst the students. And I was saying, oh, this isn't really going to happen in Barbados. Or we won't have teachers leaving the system because of those um those things that she pointed out. And then the next day, Pastor Ferdy, we had this issue at Princess Margaret in the press. Who is responsible? This is don't tell me it's the church. You and I know that the church, and I can speak for the Anglican Church. I know they're doing things within their YPA, the Pentecostal assemblies, the Methodist, the Moravian churches across Barbados are doing as much as it's allowed or they can to intervene. Civil society is. But when it comes to national level, the opportunity came here, and I listened to the Prime Minister's speech at the by-election in St. James North. And yes, she did, in all fairness, address crime and violence. But you know how it was addressed? How many police um, what they've done for the police force, how many they are recruiting, how many they have upgraded. But we are not here. And she talked about the legislation that will be put in place and the judges that were appointed. but I still am not hearing how are you averting, intervening, or acting proactively where the guns are concerned. Where are they coming in? Do you know who are the law of the few who are bringing in the drugs, the few who control the turf? And don't tell me you don't know, because you had a peace program that targeted those segments of society. What has happened to the peace program? I thought that Kirk Humphrey was the savior, the Messiah, because it seemed as though Mr. Corey Lane was just the John the Baptist, if I were to use a metaphor, and Mr. Humphrey was the Messiah, it would be solved. What are we doing about this tipping point? If they are coming up the hill towards the point, can they be stopped?
Well, Rose, I will say this to you, and of course, we're out of time in this segment. My goodness, there's so much contained in it. But I'll say to you, as I looked at the diagram, with the ball being pushed up the hill, I would dare say that we have probably reached the pinnacle. And in my science knowledge, when I did my science, we talked about what was called potential energy. That is the energy of something by virtue of its position, and then the kinetic by virtue of its motion. And so if you
So if
look
you
at the
look at the
top,
top,
with them
with them
pushing the
pushing the
ball up
ball,
to the top of the mound, if that gets to the top, excuse me, and rolls over, it has its own energy, and it will carry itself, and it is virtually impossible to stop. So we pray this evening, Rose, that we have not actually gone over the top before, because God help us if we have. We definitely will need some serious spiritual intervention by the Lord, who is the people's guide. But we've run out of time, Rose, and it's always a problem. One of these days we're going to be able to come on and stay on a little longer and deal with these matters, because they're also critically important. And I want to say thank you, and ask you to just stay we're going to put you in the green room, all right, in
Yes,
that
please.
lovely green room, because we do have a calling segment of the program. But there's just so much to share in these shows, that people need to hear, need to see. And as you know, we have been recently sharing the aspects of the mic on the move in Dominica, so that the people in Barbados can see what has been happening as
as
a
a
result
result
of
of
Barbados's
Barbados's
interference
interference
into the
into the
Dominican
Dominican
environment.
environment.
And so we
And
want
so
to
we want to
continue that
continue that.
tonight, but
Yes,
we want to
please.
thank you so very much for sharing that segment with us. And we really want you to just stay in the room, so that right back there in the green room, so that when we go to those call-in segments, maybe there are people who would want to ask questions or contribute to what you've said. So thank you so very much. And we're going to
Thank you
move then
too.